Today's Coach on the Couch is sponsored by Grassland Butter. Grassland Butter since 1904. Welcome to Coach on the Couch. I'm your host, Jason Zaleski, here today at Columbus Catholic High School talking to Don's boys basketball coach, Joe Konieczny. Coach, before we start talking about this year's team and recapping last year, just to remind the audience, how many years you've been coaching basketball here and what keeps you coming back every year?
Well, this is my 18th year at Columbus, 20th year coaching a varsity boys team overall. And obviously what keeps me coming back is just that I really enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. I love the relationships that I get to build with young men while they're in high school and then many years beyond. So it's been a very valuable thing for my family and for myself personally. So I hope to do it for many more years to come.
Before we talk about this year's team, I think it's totally appropriate to talk about last year's seniors. You had a group of 4 last year, right? You had 2 Coles, 2 Sams on the team. We could fill up a whole show talking about those 4 young men. Tell us, though, what kind of legacy, what they did for your basketball program.
Well, the biggest thing they did is I think they were mentors and friends to the players we currently have. I think that they stay in touch with those young men. I know they reached out to them the first day of practice, in the weeks prior to practice, letting them know that they'd still be with them in spirit, and we're really pulling for them over the course of this next season. And I think that's what's a special thing when they want this team to go further than they did. And it's a genuine thing. It's not like, hey, I don't want them to do what we didn't get the opportunity to do. It's a genuine caring for the people we currently have and desire to see them go past what we did last year. And their mentorship and their leadership is something we can't replace. We're going to try, but I hope that as people, the boys we currently have can turn out like those 4. Then we will have been pretty successful.
I've said a few times over the course of your time here how structurally sound your teams are, how fundamentally sound they are, how well executed the game of basketball is played under your direction here at Columbus Catholic. Why is that?
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily me. I think it's a culture that kind of permeates the school. We talk to our players a lot about the kind of people they are 24 hours a day, not just at practice. When they come to the gym at 3 o'clock, for those 2 or 2.5 hours, we're going to ask them to conduct themselves in a certain way, to be disciplined and selfless and leaders, and to genuinely give their best effort all the time, and to self-reflect, and to be aware of what they do well, but to also accept what they don't do well. And we tell them a lot, you shouldn't have to change who you are when you walk in the gym. And I think what we have here at Columbus, what a lot of places have, is that we don't have to change who they are as people. I think they're encouraged to live that way the rest of their lives, especially during the school day at the school. So the advantage that I see is that they walk into the gym and they just have to continue to be themselves, which can be pretty impressive from a person standpoint.
As your season went on last year, like any other good team, your boys got better each week. I remember it was probably the game before your second game of the season, and I was doing my best to describe a difference between one team and the other, and I called your team boring, and I couldn't have been more wrong as the season went on, because you had a really exciting season. I was wrong to say what I did, just a poor choice of words in comparing 2 teams, but your team it was a very, very exciting season. It ended with a sectional final appearance in a game that I thought you really coached masterfully in that game. It's just the height, Ted. There was a height discrepancy in that game. But when you look back and think on the memories of last year's team, what memory or what kind of method or mode from that team will stick with you for years to come?
Just their genuine desire to be there for one another. And I know it's cliche, but those guys had each other's backs and everything. Like during the school day at team meals, I can remember we'd go out to team dinners, and I'd go to the table after paying the bill, and there's a couple of our seniors making sure that guys had enough money to tip the waitress, making sure that people got where they needed to be as far as seniors and juniors, taking care of freshmen and sophomores. They were just really good friends to one another. And it's meaningful to me that I think they're the kind of friends that 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, they're still going to be close. And I think that in itself made us successful I mean, and when you say boring, I think it's more of a consistency thing. We try to be the same way every day, and those guys were that. You know, they cared for one another, and they didn't care who did what individually. It was all about how do we succeed as a team or perform as a team. In the sectional final loss, obviously a very difficult thing, but at the same time, the beautiful thing is when you got those young men in the locker room and they're crying and they're hugging each other and they're saying goodbye and telling each other what they mean to one another. You just can't replace that, and it's a special, special thing to be a part of.
Before we talk about this year's team, first from me to you, a special thanks for allowing us to perform our All Access episodes last year. We got to go in the locker room and really get to know the players on the team from last year. So thank you for letting that happen. So this year's team, you'll have a conference preview that I'll write that will include you being picked as a conference champion and as a team that will go to the state tournament. There are others around the state that have already written about those things and made those types of claims. How do you and the boys keep that information as a positive motivator rather than I'm going to put these headlines in my pocket and walk around school like a champ already?
You know, I think they do a pretty good job of staying humble. You know, it's one of our core pillars or our core values. And we don't really talk about the expectations from an outside standpoint. We try to approach today, and then we'll worry about tomorrow. And you know, I told them there's years we're not ranked. There's years we're not picked to win it. And in those years, we want to say, you know what, that doesn't mean anything. It's not true. We're going to prove it wrong. Well, you can't say all of a sudden now that it's correct because they're telling you what you want to hear. We're trying really hard to self-reflect and to analyze our effort and to make sure that whenever it ends, whether it be the first playoff game or the state tournament, we can say we took every day serious and we had an approach that made this bigger than basketball. And if we do that, I think the basketball kind of takes care of itself.
Mentioned the 4 seniors from last year. Senior leadership is so crucial in the high school game. Tell us about this group of seniors coming in this year.
Well, we have 3 out. Grant Olson, he's a 4-year varsity player. Got a little bit injured during the soccer season, but we're hoping to have him full strength here shortly. Obviously, just a tremendous high school student athlete. Soccer conference player of the year last year, all conference in basketball multiple times, and baseball conference athlete that got to play in the baseball state tournament. But he's kind of the guy that sets the tone as a human being too, not caring about anything individual and making sure that we're all holding each other accountable. So from a leadership standpoint, I think he's kind of the guy. And then Isaac Moritz is another multiple sport athlete, really works hard at practice and has an opportunity to have a role on this team. Seamus Hoagland is back out this year. He's our 3rd senior. He works very hard, is incredibly respectful, and also has a place here at Columbus where we can make sure that he impacts us and we impact him, and he's been a joy to have around too. So those 3 guys, as basketball players, but more so as people, really kind of set the tone.
Your team rebounding has been off the charts, it seems like, for a long time. So kind of a 2-part question. 1, you know, why is rebounding so important? And 2, how are you able to find that guy? You've got a guy right now that's in the state tournament record books for rebounds in a tournament series, and others along the way. How are you able to find that guy or those guys every year? And then why rebounding? Why is that so important?
Well, traditionally we've been pretty small, so we have to work hard at it. You know, we have to make sure it's a 5-person effort, and not just relying heavily on one person. We've also been blessed to have Bryce Ferlinger, who was as natural at that as any person I've ever seen. But then we have guys like Cole Noreen and Sam Wilczek last year, and some guys on the team this year in Grant, and others, Lucas Kreklau, who really buy into doing the things that maybe don't get recognized as much as scoring. And as long as they have that mentality, and we talk about starring in your role. Every company has one CEO and a couple presidents and some managers, all the way down to the low people on the totem pole. And we have a lot of shooters on this team. So those shooter roles are kind of filled. If you want to get on the floor, you're going to have to play defense and rebound and take care of the ball. And I think a lot of people on our teams in the past and this year have kind of bought into starring whatever roles available for them.
You mentioned the shooters, so let's talk about offense for this year's team. Is outlook for this year's team a team that'll score 45 a game, or is this an 80-point kind of an effort night in, night out?
I think it'll be in between. You know, Grant can score, but from an outside shooting standpoint, Blake Jacoby, Charlie Moore, Emmett Konieczny, and others can all score 15 to 25 on any given night. We have multiple guys that can do that. I think we're going to be a team that's tough to shut 1 or 2 down because we do have a 3rd or 4th or 5th option. And then Kreklow on the interior, really with his inside-out ability, and he's seen the floor so well this first 2 weeks. We hope to be fairly balanced and to be that kind of team where it might be a different person every night depending on who they're trying to take away. And if we share the ball, we have multiple guys that can score.
I mentioned your preseason pick, at least on this side of the table, of conference champion. I'll give you a chance for coach speak and tell me why why it's going to be a tough road in the Clover Belt East this year.
Well, I think, and this it's going to sound like coach speak, but I think our conference is as good as it's been in the last 5 or 6 years. Neilsville has a number of athletes returning. Andrew Brown, who's a first-team player of the year candidate the last couple seasons, is a really good player. And I think Owen Withy has a tremendous amount of size, 6'5", 6'6", and multiple kids and some guards who can play. I think Colby always has a pile of athletes that you see it in every sport. They just have a culture over there where they're going to compete. Loyal and Coach DeSmet, they have a really talented freshman class coming in with some guys coming back, so they're going to be good. So I don't think it's going to be a year where anybody goes undefeated in the conference. I think it's going to make it more fun that it's so competitive with 5 or 6 teams that can beat you on any given night. I'm hoping that we're one of those teams that can be contention, but we don't necessarily make that a goal or focus too much on it because that can kind of maybe influence how you handle what you can control, which is right now.
Yeah, you've mentioned a bunch of names already. Who is one guy that, as the season progresses, people may not know this person yet, but as the season goes on, you really think has got a chance to really step up and shine during the season?
Well, we have a number of them. I think those guys I mentioned with Olson and Kreklow and Charlie and Blake and Emmett, they all got varsity minutes last year, so they're a little bit more well known. But right behind those guys, we have a kid named Alex Edwards, who's just a tremendous athlete and can do a lot of the things Noreen did if we get him to continue to buy in. Nathan Nemeth is another junior. Cy Becker's injured right now, but Nathan and Cy can both fill a role defensively. I think Nathan's had a really good first 2 weeks. Cal Burkhauser is new to our program. It's his first year at Columbus. Another good athlete that is kind of in that Noreen mold, do some little things that can really help us win, knock down shots when they're there. Cole Hilgeman's a 6'5" or 6'6" junior that's injured right now, but you can't teach what he has from a length and athleticism standpoint. So we have a number of guys behind those 5 that we mentioned from a scoring standpoint that can definitely play a role.
So we begin to wrap things up here. I like to talk about in-person attendance because it's so important. The kids feed off of it. It makes the high school experience much better for the community to come out and support these kids because we were all in high school at one point in time. So this is a way that people can give back. It wasn't that long ago we were telling people to stay out of the gym. So I think it's important still to remind people about all the good things, including the chocolate chip cookies here at Columbus Catholic, but why it's so important to be here and support these kids in person.
A lot of reasons. Number one, I think the student athletes deserve it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience to play high school sports, and to do that in a really great environment with a packed house, they'll never have that again. So I think it's important we give that to them. And then number two, I think from the parents of a young player standpoint, nothing could maybe prepare them more or get them more excited than bringing them to the gym and sitting in the first or second row and watching how these young men conduct themselves. I think they're a great example. And I think it can really create an excitement in our youth to be in attendance personally. Obviously, you do a great thing on the road, and you do a great thing at home, but the service you provide is wonderful. But if I'm a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade kid that wants to be a Columbus Don, come to the gym and see what it's about, and it's a special, special thing.
We tell people all the time, for us too. I hated it when there was nobody in the gym. For us too, we need people there. It brings our energy up as well. And I don't think we'll have any troubles, but it's always good just to remind people that you need to be in the gym and support. Last question. So we talked to you. We mentioned the kids' names. Sometimes the staff gets left out. So tell us about your coaching staff this year.
I just very fortunate to have them. We have five young men that help us. Coach Wilson's not that young, but Eric Wilson's a varsity assistant. He was a really good player at Marshfield.
Yes,
played at UW Superior.
Yep.
He also coaches our 8th grade, so the time he puts in during the season and in the off season is just tremendous. He's just a fantastic person too. And then we have Isaac Dulke, who's another varsity assistant. Isaac played against us probably 10 years ago, and he teaches 5th grade now for us. Another really quality person that cares a lot about the young men we coach. And then we have 3 former players on staff. Ryan Deringer, who was on the first state team, is back in town and employed at Forward Bank, and he's coaching our JV team.
That's right.
And then two other former players who played in college, Jared Fleischman and Nick Mulliver, who've been just fun to have around. And it's been really great to have all of them and to get to coach those three guys and then to have them come back to give back to the players we have now. It's just been a special thing.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Like I said, they sometimes get left out, so we're here to include everybody. Columbus Catholic boys basketball coach Joe Konieczny, best of luck this year.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for the coverage. And what keeps me coming back is the money. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Watching you.
Can we start over?
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, I do.
At least let me put that on an outtake at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
Just the money part. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. Okay.